What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick podcast. Sherdog.com is the website. I'm the host, Devin. Sign still here. We're back again. Kind of quite a bit to talk about in this show. I've been kind of skipping what's hot because there hasn't been a ton of crazy stuff going on in the news. I'll definitely break the UFC 300 main event when that comes. Maybe I'll break it on my show. Maybe I'll do something special. But we got another, what seems like a sickness of middleweights. 3 main events in a row. And this one coming up this weekend will be the last middleweight main event for this 3-week streak. Past weekend, we had a pretty lackluster main event, kind of co-main in my opinion as well. We'll talk about that. We'll just jump right into it. Starting off the show out with the old Roman Dolidze takes a weird loss to Nassourdine Imavov. I was incorrect. I picked Dolidze going into this fight. And this fight showed me exactly why I still have not that hype on Nassourdine Imavov. Is he a good fighter? Yeah. Is he a middleweight? Also, yeah. And Dolidze, what I thought of him, unfortunately with this performance is just absolutely plummeting. Bad fight, besides the first round. And by the fourth round, I was wishing Herb did stop this fight. He did fine. Roman Dolidze was still fighting. I was, what a middleweight thing for him to do, diving on, leg entanglements while getting blasted and 10-8'd. I don't know how one of the judges didn't score. We won't even talk about the scorecards. Scorecards are terrible. Ugly fight, tons of fouls. Imavov fighting with the corner. He did, again, almost finish Dolidze in the first round in very impressive fashion. His knees were on point, but then it just got to the point where, round 2 through 5 was just kind of like the same. Dolidze's striking looked absolutely terrible. He's had a great camp with great training partners. I mean, Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis was in his corner. You know that he's getting those rounds in with those dudes. Extreme Couture has hundreds of bodies that are all very high level. So for him to come in looking the way he did, he looked ill prepared. His striking has never been that good, but I mean, either Nassourdine Imavov is some slickster, or maybe Marvin Vettori wasn't as good as we thought he was, but he went out there and kind of went tit for tat with Marvin Vettori, and he could not even get the range in on Imavov. Imavov does his typical, blitz into the pocket. He'll kind of bounce in place like a karate style and blitz in. He can be venomous. He did land some nice elbows. He did drop and hurt Dolidze in the first round. I wish it would have stopped there. But it just got to the point where Dolidze would just get double underhooks and walk Imavov to the cage, and Imavov was just not strong enough or did not know what to do to stop it. And just Dolidze's plan got to the point where he was just stalling. And at that point, fight should be over, but obviously that's not going to happen. Just a bad fight. The foul was bad. Dolidze blatantly playing the game, and right, what you could just see it come from a mile away. I told myself, Imavov is going to kick him in the head. Imavov kicks him in the head and takes a point. Obviously, whether you think the rule is dumb or not, again, we're going to go into this again, the same thing as Evloev and Arnold Allen. Whether you think the rule is dumb or not doesn't mean that it's still not a rule. I'm sure you've been driving in your car and you've gotten into an area where it's a 20, you're in a 20 mile per hour zone, and you're probably thinking, well, this should probably be like a 45. It's a stupid rule. Doesn't mean that you still can't get a ticket for going over the speed limit. And it's the same thing with these MMA rules, the downed opponent rule. Do I think it's a dumb rule? Yes. Do I think it needs to be enforced? Also, yes, because it's one of the rules. If an illegal strike impacts the fight in any way, the refs are supposed to take a point. And that's what happened here. They took a point, and that's kind of where this wonky 47-47 scorecard came from. Definitely a weird scorecard entered by one of the judges. How could you call that a draw? One of them also did not score the first round of 10-8. That's where the 47-47 came from. I mean, 10-8s are supposed to be like, I don't know, it's either 5 or 15%. I can't recall off the top of my head, but a very small amount of rounds scored are supposed to be 10-8 rounds. I think we should probably get more 10-8s, but this one is a clear 10-8 round in my opinion. Almost getting a finish, getting back control, landing ground and pound, buzzing Dolidze on the feet, hurting him, all the ground and pound, also with the back take. The fight could have easily been stopped, and another ref outside of her probably would have stopped that fight. So Imavov moves forward. Dolidze takes a major step back. He needs a major step back after this. Middleweight just also continues to go on to be probably the worst men's division in MMA, or second worst next to heavyweight, but probably a little more boring. Izzy had some fun fights in there, but I like Sean Strickland, but he is not some, mesmerizing knockout guy. Dricus du Plessis is a crazy fighter. That's just because he's absolutely so reckless. But this fight and this whole thing, this main event, is the exact reason why Dricus du Plessis is a champion in the UFC, because middleweight continues to just be an LOL division. I don't think either one of these guys does. I mean, Imavov should have done more in this fight, had the ability to do more. He was definitely faster, but he landed a nice elbow in the clinch at one point, and he did things, but he still just seems like he changed his camps. So I know he's no longer at his old camp with Fernando Lopez. I understand that, but I don't know. It's middleweight, so you never know. But I'm just like, I don't see Nassourdine Imavov fighting for a title. And after this performance, Dolidze's striking looks so terrible. He looked like someone trying to keep from drowning. This is probably as high as Dolidze is ever going to go, because anyone with a jab and circling footwork is just going to give him absolute fits. But again, as middleweight. Okay, so matchmaking for these dudes real quick before we move on. I think Dolidze should fight somebody if they want to, give someone a ranking and give someone a name. I think someone like Shara Bullet would be a very interesting matchup for him. Caio Borralho and Paul Craig just got matched up. That winner of that could fight. Winner of that could literally fight Dolidze or Imavov here. Imavov should just fight Chris Curtis. I know he says he doesn't want to fight Chris Curtis, but obviously that's the fight to make. Chris Curtis did the little thing. That's funny. Haven't seen that one in a while. But like, Chris Curtis is doing what he's supposed to do. He's at the Apex. He even called for a main event in the Apex. Nassourdine Imavov is going to be fighting in the Apex, and they could make that a main event. I don't know, maybe like in May or something, and a random fight night card, or like a co-main event on a random fight night card somewhere. Chris Curtis and Imavov, I think that makes all the sense. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Renato Moicano defeating Drew Dober in a pretty close fight. This fight was a fight that I thought was going to be a lot cooler. It was still fine. Like, Drew Dober hitting lateral drops, and like all of a sudden there was one point in the fight where I feel like I looked away for just 1 second, and I looked back and I'm like, what the hell happened to Moicano? I tossed it into the Sherdog Slack, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. And all of a sudden he looks like he, like the Hereditary girl faced at the stop sign, Drew Dober going for another lateral drop takedown in the third round and just dying on this takedown and losing this fight. Moicano won this fight and his ground control, but Moicano was like flagging at the end of the second. Drew Dober clearly won it. And then he just, once Drew Dober starts to wrestle with people, it just like doesn't turn out well for him. Obviously, when he is getting grappled, he loses those fights. Islam, so on and so forth. You can poke through Drew Dober's record. Everyone that's listening to this knows about Drew Dober and his grappling holes. And he stayed very safe in this fight. Renato Moicano got even into full mount. He got half, 3/4 mount tons of times, landing some, but nothing too punishing, very controlled. Moicano literally just rolled and controlled, landing, I don't want to say rabbit punches, but, small shots here and there while controlling Drew Dober in the third. And I think Drew Dober just fucking blew it. This was a fight that Drew Dober could have won. I picked Drew Dober, and after the way that this fight played out, I don't mind that pick, and I still feel good about it. And if they rematched, I might even pick Drew Dober again, just because if Drew Dober doesn't, Drew Dober's mistakes are what won Moicano this fight, in my opinion. Yes, Moicano did, was able to reverse that lateral drop, get top position, and ride out that third round. That is Moicano's doing. But that grappling sequence was initiated by Drew Dober, and Moicano was buzzed up, getting clipped up on the feet with big hooks from Dober. Dober's striking didn't seem as nip tuck as it normally does. He's usually a little, he's not a very nip tuck guy. He's, hopping it out into the pocket and into punching range and, throw big headshots. He'll punch the body and stuff. Moicano looked big here. But I'm like worried about Moicano's deficiencies when it comes to the striking at 55 and moving up. Like, yeah, he went out there and like iced Brad Riddell, but Brad Riddell is not the dude that we thought he was. And even in this fight, look what Rafael Fiziev did to him. Yes, it is Rafael Fiziev, but he wants to move up. He has become this weird character. I personally don't know if I love it. Maybe I'm just being a hater, but like, he talks. His post-fight did not match the fight. I'll just say that. I get it, man. You got to sell shit. You got to make money. I do love the fact that he's like going live on YouTube, like in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, calling out some MMA YouTuber that I won't say, because you should be watching my show and not anyone else's, or Ben and Keith, so you can watch Ben and Keith's show. But Moicano here, he's just the damage accrued, the way he speaks on the mic. He's like, my 62-year-old dad just had a kid, so he's an older brother. And he said, I'm going to go home and impregnate my way. He's just weird. Saying he loves being American, which is good. We love being Americans. Bad, saying he wants to be a cop and kill bad guys. That's bad. Police officers should not want to do that. That's what the military's for, and mercenary stuff. He can go do that after his MMA career. I think that'd be better suited for him. I think any police. Well, I'm from Miami, and he lives in Miami, and I'll tell you what. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Miami-Dade County PD that probably have a very similar mentality to Renato Moicano. That's neither here nor there. I guess it's a good win for him. He did not call out Paddy Pimblett, but they seem to be chirping back and forth online. That's probably like hate to say it, but like a Renato Moicano, a dude that's punchable and that likes to grapple, may not do as well against Paddy Pimblett as we all think, unfortunately. Because Paddy Pimblett is a dude that is big, very defensively porous, and not good. But he hits very hard, and he also likes to grapple. That's the fight to make. Fuck it. And Drew Dober just fights anyone. Don't matter to me. It's Drew Dober. We're not even going to look at the rankings. There's no reason to. Just, I don't know. If Jim Miller beats Bobby Green at UFC 300 and wants another fight, he could fight Drew Dober. Or, I don't know, Drew Dober just said he wants to fight like 4 times this year. go up to like 170 and fight Tim Means, or like do some weird shit. If you just want to have fun fights and you don't want to contend for a belt, who cares about the weight class if you just want to have fun scraps with dudes? Drew Dober can be a fight night main card fighter, whether he's opening the card against anyone. Him and Jalen Turner would be pretty fun. Jalen Turner could also fight Moicano, but I don't like that fight for him. I think Jalen Turner absolutely ices Moicano. It's 155. There's a million fun fights. They're all dope. If I'm Drew Dober and they offer me a guy that likes to wrestle first and strike second, I just say no. I look to maybe slide in at welterweight against a guy that, I don't know, maybe Miguel Baeza has an opponent that drops out or something weird, and Drew Dober's like, fuck it, I'll move up to 170 and scrap with this dude. That's what he needs to be looking for. He needs to be looking for post-fight bonuses and not contention. That's, he said he's the new cowboy. Do the thing. Go ahead, Drew Dober. I'm here for it. Couple spots down the card. I think it might be one spot down the card, actually. Order is a blur at this point. One fight I did get right. Natalia Silva defeats Viviane Araujo via unanimous decision, 29-28 on all three cards. I think it could have been a 30-27. Silva's good. I think she's going to maybe run into a couple problems, but probably not yet. And I think she could fix the things that need to be fixed before those problems even occur, in my opinion. She's pretty fucking good. She's definitely the fastest fighter in that division. I don't think there's any disputing that. Maybe Alexa Grasso. But Natalia Silva's hand speed, her athleticism, her footwork, her ability to get in and out. She has really good cardio. Anyone that can fight the way that she fought for 3 rounds on the back foot, circling, stopping, letting her hands and kicks rip, and then continuing to get on her bike for 3 rounds and not look winded, and sing herself happy birthday after has good cardio. Viviane Araujo had the right game plan. She just did not have the speed to cut off Natalia Silva. She did get entries on the cage, and Natalia Silva did have good takedown defense. She did get taken down. She got back up. I think Silva, just to talk about it's not a problem because she's so fast and it's women's flyweight. Like, I don't see why she just couldn't do this to like everyone besides Macy Barber, Alexa Grasso, and Valentina Shevchenko, girls that are just big athletes that are dangerous. I don't see why she couldn't just, get on the back foot and make people chase her and be too quick. She could maybe even win a title with that game plan right now. I would love to see her be a much more willing front foot fighter and a jabber, because her hands are so fast. She's so durable. Araujo is a decent puncher, and she hurt Araujo. Anytime in the pocket, she was, kind of biting down and do the eyes closed thing, letting her hands rip. I didn't like that, but her hands are so fast and she's accurate and she's clearly an athlete that if she just had confidence in her jab, instead of using her jab as a get away from me weapon, she used it as a battering ram and got on the front foot, and just got a little more confident in herself. She could give girls a lot of problems just because she hit so hard and her hands are so fast. She was clipping up Araujo, and you could tell Araujo did not like any of those like 2, 3, 4 punch combinations in the pocket with the hands. Her kicks are lightning speed. She was landing great head kicks on Araujo. Again, Araujo had the right game plan, smush the distance, cut the cage, but she just wasn't fast enough to do so. Natalia Silva is 27. She just turned 27 this past Saturday night, or this past Saturday. It was her birthday. And again, she's just really good. Her athleticism and her speed alone is going to give her tons of success against girls. I mean, someone that is crazy, crazy powerful for the division, like a Macy Barber that is big and tough and willing to walk through things, could potentially give her problems. Or if someone just says, hey, I want to be a back foot counterpuncher, let you walk onto something, or let me meet you in the pocket and have exchanges, could have some success like an Alexa Grasso. But again, Araujo tried her best and just could not track down Silva. Silva's really good. And there's so many options for Silva, like on who she could fight next. Lauren Murphy had a fight that she kind of pulled out from, and she disappeared off the UFC rankings. People are saying she's not with the UFC anymore, but I do believe she still is. Rose Namajunas is fighting Amanda Ribas. She could fight the winner of that. She could fight Macy Barber's got a fight coming up too. She could fight the winner of that one, her and Chikagian. She could fight the loser of Manon Fiorot and Aaron Blanchfield. If I was Natalia Silva, I would be looking to fight maybe a Tracy Cortez or Lauren Murphy or the winner of Ribas and Rose to get one more high-level fight in before fighting, in my opinion, I think Aaron Blanchfield, Valentina Shevchenko, and Alexa Grasso are the three best in the division. I think that I kind of rate all three of them on the same level with their abilities to just hold the belt. I think Blanchfield could beat Shevchenko, and I think Blanchfield could beat Grasso, and I think Shevchenko can beat both of them, and I think Grasso can beat, the other two. So, and we've seen Grasso and Shevchenko's fights be razor close. And I think Blanchfield with her grappling is just as dangerous. And Manon Fiorot is just right below them, in my opinion. And I think Silva, maybe fighting the loser of a Blanchfield, Manon Fiorot, or the winner of Ribas Rose would be the perfect fight for her. She's exciting. I'm here for it. And for Viviane Araujo, she's going to need to take a step back, and they'll probably book her against someone like Jasmine Jasdavicius, who just had a great win, who's a little bit further back in the rankings. I think Jasdavicius and Araujo is probably the fight to make. And I think Jasdavicius is probably the best chance for Canadian MMA right now. So make that fight. Do it, UFC. Moving on to the UFC fight card coming up this weekend, headlined by Joe Pyfer and Jack Hermansson. Again, we're going to skip the middle segment, what's hot, because there's not too much hot stuff going on this weekend. Floyd Mayweather versus Gotti 2, because he didn't learn his lesson the first time, is coming back around. He's fighting a mobster's son. That's brilliant. We're here to talk about fights that are for real, though. We have Max Payne Griffin fighting Jeremiah Wells. Jeremiah Wells is the slight favorite, coming in at -170. Max Payne Griffin coming in at +142 as the dog. This is a good fight. I don't know why it's buried on the prelims on a random ass fight night. Because this is a pretty good fucking fight. And it's probably because they're both coming off of losses, but these guys are both good fighters. Max Griffin, he started off in the UFC, and he wasn't doing too great. He had his diabetic weight cutting issues, but even though at 38 years old, he's kind of fighting better than he ever has before. He arguably beat Neil Magny back in 2022. And a lot of his recent wins / losses are, he's not getting absolutely shit kicked. You can go all the way back to 2020, where he lost via split decision against Cowboy Oliveira. That TKO doctor stoppage where he elbowed Ramiz Brahimaj's ear off was really good. He knocked out Kenan Song. The decision over Carlos Condit. Losing a really close split decision to Neil Magny shows you kind of what level he's at. Ask Mike Malott about that. The split decision over Tim Means. Tim Means is a dirty bird. He can have a close fight with a lot of dudes. And then even though he lost to Michael Morales last time out, Michael Morales is an undefeated dynamo that is huge and a great striker, and Max Griffin was brought in to lose in violent fashion. And he went out there and had a good semi-close fight with this guy. Jeremiah Wells. Jeremiah Wells is a guy that's coming off of a loss to Carlston Harrison in the third round of their fight, where he was kind of cleanly winning the fight, but got overzealous, as a Jeremiah Wells typically does, and got anaconda all the way to sleep. It was like fast asleep, and he got finished fast. Prior to that, he's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak, and a lot of them were fast and violent. The knockout of Warley Alves, incredible. That rear naked choke, choking out Blood Diamond to sleep. The knockout of Court McGee. And then we have the split decision to Matthew Semmelsberger. And I think that's where I'm going to take most of my information on this fight. Because Max Griffin can do a lot of things that Semmelsberger does. He can hit hard. He can have good wrestling defense. And that's not what Semmelsberger had in that fight. Semmelsberger hurt Jeremiah Wells every time he landed on him. And Jeremiah Wells is a guy that is he's a guy that is super strong, super powerful. That Renzo Gracie Fili camp is a pretty good camp. Joe Pyfer comes from there. Sean Brady's another guy. And Jeremiah Wells is short, long arms, super athlete, big power, good grappling, good control, good wrestling, good submissions. He's a Renzo Gracie black belt. But he also makes a lot of mistakes. He's defensively porous, and I don't know if he's the most durable guy out there. And Max, this should just be like a pick'em fight. Max Griffin is the underdog here at plus 142. I think there's just a lot of value in that. I think Max Griffin, he can have the same fight Semmelsberger had with Jeremiah Wells and just probably win it because he's a little more crafty than Semmelsberger and has higher fight IQ and just has better wrestling defense. Jeremiah Wells could come out and just hit him with an overhand the same way he just splattered Court McGee, and this could all be over. Max Griffin is 38. But this fight should not be buried on the undercard. This should be third from the top, opening up, or at least opening the main card. Like, this is a really good fight. That's why I picked it. It's buried way down on this card, way in the prelims. But again, this is a damn good fight. I just lean Max Griffin as the underdog. I just think he's a hard enough puncher, and he's crafty and durable enough to avoid Jeremiah Wells' insane offensive attacks, whether they be with his grappling and takedowns or his hands. Max Griffin's durable. He hits hard. If he could go out there and survive 3 rounds with Michael Morales, I just think he can do the same thing and have his moments and maybe even hurt Jeremiah Wells here, hurt him once or twice and definitely steal that round and then have another close round and maybe drop one. Max Griffin by decision, underdog pick. Here we fucking go. All right. Pretty fun fight in the featherweight division. Co-main event. We got Dan Ige versus Andre Touchy Fili, one of the better nicknames in MMA. Ige is the slight favorite here. He's a minus 175 favorite. Fili is the plus 145 dog. And this is a good fucking fight. Fili stepping in on short notice, and I don't love that for him. Dan Ige is Dan Ige. He's a professional, and he's, it is a short notice opponent. However, he's got a full camp. He was supposed to fight Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy is a dude that is just plagued with injuries, and he's such a good fighter, especially from, where he comes from in the UK, and he just can't get his shit straight. The dude can't make it into the octagon. So in steps Andre Fili. This is a good fight. Fili is coming from a fast turnaround here. The last time he fought was December 16th of 23, where he violently knocked out Lucas Almeida, sent his head into the top of the arena. Before that, he had a close but unanimous decision loss to Nathaniel Wood, where he did kind of get buzzed up a little bit in that fight. That split decision with Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo is a good name to have on your resume. He did get knocked out by Joe Anderson Brito. But I think Joanderson Brito is better than a lot of people think, and Joanderson Brito is probably low-key one of the best athletes and hardest punchers down at 45. Brito could probably knock anyone's lights out in this division. So that's, and it was in 41 seconds. Shit like that's just going to happen. Lost to Bryce Mitchell. You could go through this dude's record. Fili is a guy that's fought everybody. And the same goes for Dan Ige. Looking through Dan Ige's record, yeah, he's coming off of a unanimous decision loss to Bryce Mitchell, where Bryce Mitchell did the Bible freedom thing. I think Bryce Mitchell lost that fight. I think Dan Ige won that fight. So I think Dan Ige should be coming off of a three fight win streak. Beat up Nate Landwehr real bad, hurt him a bunch of times in that fight. Was a damn good fight. Damon Jackson, that knockout of Damon Jackson with a body punch coming over the top, that was really dope. I mean, you look through his record, he comes off the Contender Series, and then fights pretty good dudes. Like, he lost to Julio Arce, Mike Santiago, Jordan Griffin, Danny Henry, decent, Kevin Aguilar, Mirsad Bektic, has that fight with Barbosa that I thought he lost, but it's Edson fucking Barbosa, and then he goes out there and loses to Calvin Kattar. Well, he comes back and knocks out Gavin Tucker. That was a great one. Then he loses to Korean Zombie, he loses to Josh Emmett, loses to Movsar Evloev, and then they give him a step back, and that's where he goes and fights Damon Jackson. Both of these guys have fought the who's of their division. Dan Ige is a guy that is a good boxer, good power, decent wrestling, opportunistic grappler wrestler, will get takedowns in between, striking exchanges to avoid damage, things like that. You don't see him going out there and using a grappling game on people, but maybe he will against a short notice Fili to kind of take some of the wind out of his sails and to close the distance and take away that kicking game of Fili. I think Fili is the more dynamic striker with more tools, but I think Dan Ige is the more responsible puncher defensively and offensively. In the pocket, Fili could have success. Look what he just did to Lucas Almeida. However, I think Fili's best striking comes at distance in a fight like this. I think Fili success in this fight has to come from him using teep kicks, his big head kicks, using his jabs, staying on the back foot, and not really letting Ige get into those pocket boxing exchanges where he can have success. And for Ige, that's what he needs to do, is close the distance, mix in a takedown here and there, and really just mix in takedowns to open up his hands more. He is a good body puncher. Fili did get hurt kind of brawling in the pocket with Nathaniel Wood multiple times. Fili is also a very good wrestler. He has really good topside grappling, good wrestling defense. If Fili goes out there and does what he did to Pineda, who is a similar size guy and has a kind of similar game to Ige in a way when it comes to just their boxing in the pocket, I think he could have some success. Even though that fight Fili ended in a no contest via eye poke, he was crushing Daniel Pineda. And I think for Ige, he needs to make this look like the Damon Jackson fight. I like both these guys, but I think I like Fili a little more as a fighter, just because he's just the young veteran that went from a young guy to an OG overnight. And they both have such fun fights. I lean Dan Ige here just because the short notice thing. And I think Fili has all the tools to win this fight. Jab, teeps, head kicks, circle out. Jabs, teeps, head kicks, circle out. Do not have prolonged boxing exchanges and wrestling defense. I think Fili can win this fight. However, I think he sometimes is a little too willing to have brawls with people, like Nathaniel Wood. And Dan Ige can do what Nathaniel Wood did. Give me Ige to maybe buzz Fili at some point in this fight, and then outside of that, it'd be pretty close. But don't be surprised if Fili goes out there, gets behind a jab, and just spams head kicks. He's got great kicking game. Great kicking game from Fili. Middleweights. Main event. Joe Pyfer. Jack Hermansson. Finally, we're not going to have any more middleweights, but I think this could low-key be the best middleweight fight of the three that we had as main events here. Joe Pyfer is the disrespectfully pretty big favorite over Jack Hermansson. He's a minus 230. Hermansson's coming back at plus 195. The hype and everything behind Pyfer, don't be surprised if he swells up to like minus 300 and Hermansson shoots up to like plus 250. If you like Hermansson, wait till Friday to hammer this. And if you like Pyfer, maybe hammer him now. This is a properly matched fight if you are the UFC. One great thing about MMA and the UFC in general is they're not babying their young rookie guys. Like if you're good, especially at middleweight, like if you're good in the UFC and I mean, Joe Pyfer has a very good relationship with Dana. He's put his whole sob story out there. Be like Joe Pyfer. Dana White paid his rent for a month, whatever. This is a properly matched fight if you want to give a guy that is young and good and has a name just a bottle rocket into the top of the rankings here. Jack Hermansson's an OG of this division. Dude's been in the UFC for a hot minute. He's been in the UFC since 2016. He's fought everybody. And Jack Hermansson's thing is low-key being a good fucking grappler. And Joe Pyfer, he's got the hardest punch on the punching machine, but it has not been recorded or whatever. I saw the video. Looks like a hard punch. But he's another one of those Renzo Gracie affiliates. And he can grapple. His thing is punching very hard. That's Joe Pyfer's thing. Pretty technical boxer, has good power, good grappling. Can get a little bit overzealous, but up to now it hasn't mattered. Jack Hermansson's a guy that has this weird herky-jerky kind of in and out style. He likes to throw straight punches. He looked really good against Roman Dolidze until he got put in this weird pretzel leg entanglement and punched out. I think if they rematch, he probably beats Dolidze, especially after what we saw this past weekend. Frustrated the fuck out of Chris Curtis. He lost a split decision to Sean Strickland in 2022, but I think that was just a bad decision. He beat Edmund Shabazian the way you're supposed to. The decision lost to Vettori. He had a quick, close scrap with Vettori. That heel hook, just hopping on that heel hook real quick on Kelvin Gastelum, that was dope. Yes, he got knocked out by Carneiro, and that's a big red flag. When you're fighting someone like Joe Pyfer, especially coming in on a long layoff. This dude has not fought since December 3rd of 2022. So it's been over a year since he's fought. The submission of Gerald Meerschaert, David Branch, and Jacare Souza. Well, he didn't submit Jacare, but out wrestling and out grappling Jacare. All those three things happening in a row were super, super impressive from Jack Hermansson. But that was 5 years ago. Like, he submitted David Branch March 30th of 2019. I'm recording this on February 5th of 2024. Besides that, he's traded wins and losses. But Joe Pyfer might low-key be the most dangerous dude he's fought since Jared Cannonier when it comes to pure power. Joe Pyfer, that submission over Abdulrazak Al-Hassan was great. The knockout of Gerald Meerschaert. It's Gerald Meerschaert, but it's Gerald Meerschaert. Alan Amadovsky, that was just a absolute layup. Like, you can't even, if you're doing tape study for this, like, keep that out of it. Watch your Austin Troutman knockouts or watch your Gerald Meerschaert knockouts or watch that Abdulrazak Al-Hassan fight. If you're Dana White, you obviously want Joe Pyfer to win this fight. And you just want to continue to push this dude up into the rankings if he does win this fight. But Jack Hermansson is a guy that if he goes out there and he has really good cardio. And he's maybe not the most durable guy, but the Joker's tough as fuck. And he likes to grapple. and he's been doing a lot of grappling tournaments in the off season while he hasn't been fighting, which is something that's really great. At least he's staying active, and that's his thing. His bread and butter is grappling. He will jump on submissions. Look what he did to Kelvin Gastelum. Joe Pyfer is a guy that he's not ironclad. Like he does make mistakes, and I could see him totally hurting Hermansson, or even just making one mistake like Kelvin Gastelum did, and something weird happening. If Jack Hermansson tries to have the Chris Curtis fight with Joe Pyfer, he might get knocked the fuck out. Even though he cleanly beat Chris Curtis, Joe Pyfer does not have the most amazing cage cutting and footwork abilities. He's still very young in his game. He's still very raw. But Joe Pyfer has this, crazy belief in himself that anyone you put across the cage from him is going to get iced. That's what he believes, and that's important. Having, especially in a division like middleweight, we keep saying it, but in a division where you're maybe not the most technical, being a supreme athlete and really believing in yourself makes a true fucking difference. I hope we see the fourth round of this fight start, because that will tell us a lot about Joe Pyfer, and I want to learn more about him. If we get a round 4 start, I'm very curious on what that looks like. Jack Hermansson could come out here and wrestle grapple for 5 rounds, maybe get hurt in the first round, and then go out there and win 3 rounds with his grappling. It could happen. It's Jack Hermansson, that's his thing. But I'm going to go with Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer is a dude that's surging. Jack Hermansson's coming off of a over 1 year long layoff where he got finished by Dolidze. The way Joe Pyfer win this fight is if he catches him early. And it's probably going to look like the Jared Cannonier fight. Give me Joe Pyfer to win by first round knockout. If a second round starts of this fight, it could look very bad for Joe Pyfer. Not confident in this pick at all. But I also feel like it's going to be one of those fights where whoever wins is going to really show us something about them and really show us something about the opponent that they beat. Yeah. This card is okay. There's some decent fights on here. A lot of middleweights. I guess give them to us now so we don't have to watch them later. Hobocop is fighting Brad Tavares. Hobocop's always in a fun fight, so give me that. Some weird, like Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio, like whatever. I guess feed it to me. Week after this weekend, though, we got Topuria versus Volkanovski, and that's what we're all here for. Till then, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in. Check the kick, Sherdog.com. I'm Devin. Enjoy the fights.